Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I want to speak to someone whose heart is tired, someone who has been praying, questioning, and maybe even crying in silence. You've been wondering whether to walk away, whether to let go, whether the person you've been believing for is still part of God's plan for your life. And here is the word for you today. God says, don't give up on this person, not because you're weak, not because you're desperate, but because he is not done yet. Some connections are not accidents, they are assignments. Some relationships are not coincidences, they are covenants. Some people are not temporary, they are chosen. When God plants a promise in your heart about a person, that promise does not expire simply because circumstances become difficult or confusing. Many people assume that silence, distance, or delay means the story is over, but God does some of his greatest work in seasons where nothing appears to be happening. What feels like stillness to you is often movement in the unseen. What feels like inactivity from someone else may be the very space God is using to shape, mature, and prepare them for the role they will one day play in your life. A promise from God is not fragile. It is not dependent on perfect timing or flawless behavior. When God breathes purpose into a connection, that purpose remains even through storms, misunderstandings, or temporary separation. It is natural to feel discouraged when what you hoped for doesn't unfold on your timeline. It is natural to question whether you misheard God or imagined the connection entirely, but faith is not built on what you see. It is built on what God said. He often allows delays not to punish you, but to strengthen you. He allows pauses to protect you from stepping into something prematurely. Just as seeds spend time underground before breaking through the soil, God's promises spend time growing beneath the surface before becoming visible. In this hidden phase, he deals with insecurities, heals wounds, adjusts direction, and aligns hearts. You may not witness the process, but transformation is taking place. When God says the promise is still alive, it means he is not finished. It means the story is not at its final chapter. Sometimes you only see the emptiness of the present moment, but God sees the fullness of what's coming. The person you're believing for may not yet be in a place where they can love you the way you deserve or give you the commitment God intends for you both to experience. They may be wrestling with fears, healing from old pain, or learning lessons that are essential for your future together. You may feel ready now, but they may be in a season of preparation that you cannot rush. God never forces timing. He perfects it. And in that perfection, he ensures that both people arrive at the same place emotionally, spiritually, and mentally at the right time. The promise remains alive even when communication slows down or emotions get confusing. Human reactions are inconsistent, but God's intentions are steady. He is not intimidated by temporary distance. The promise is not void because someone pulls away, reevaluates, or freezes out of fear. Sometimes God allows separation because the healing required can only happen individually. Sometimes he allows silence because clarity grows in quiet spaces. Sometimes he allows conflict because it exposes what must be corrected before unity can flourish. Every interruption, every pause, every shift is part of a larger divine strategy. Just because you cannot see the movement does not mean there is none. Clouds hide the sun, but the sun never stops shining. Delay hides progress, but progress never stops under God's direction. When you lean on your own timeline, you become frustrated. When you lean on God's timing, you become strengthened. He wants you to trust that He is working even when you feel alone. He wants you to understand that His promise is not dependent on what you see today, but on what He has ordained from the beginning. He wants you to hold on to the truth that if He spoke it, He will bring it to pass. There is a reason He placed this person in your heart so deeply. There is a reason you can't shake the feeling that the connection is significant. There is a reason the thought of them carries a sense of peace, even when circumstances feel chaotic. God's promises carry spiritual weight. They don't fade like temporary emotions. They remain alive, anchored in His purpose until the moment they are revealed. When God chooses someone to be part of your destiny, the journey toward that connection is rarely smooth or predictable. Divine relationships require a deeper level of faith because they are not built on convenience, comfort, or perfect circumstances. They are built on purpose. When God assigns someone to your life, He weaves their story into yours in a way that stretches your patience, strengthens your character, and expands your capacity to love beyond simple emotions. You begin to realize that destiny connections aren't about instant gratification. They are about long-term spiritual alignment. This is why such relationships often face challenges, misunderstandings, and seasons of distance. These moments are not signs of failure, but opportunities for faith to grow. Faith becomes necessary because spiritual connections don't always look logical. You may feel drawn to someone who is still healing, still discovering themselves, or still learning how to love properly. God may show you glimpses of who they will become, even when their current behavior doesn't reflect that maturity yet. It takes faith to see beyond the present. It takes faith to believe that God is working on both of you simultaneously. It takes faith to trust that what He has joined spiritually will manifest naturally in the right season. This kind of love asks you to rely not on your understanding, but on God's. Trusting God in this process means acknowledging that the journey will test you. There will be days when you feel unsure, when communication isn't clear, when emotions shift, and when doubts try to take root. Your heart may ask, why do I feel so connected to this person? Or why does this matter so much? But spiritual bonds that are divinely orchestrated carry a weight that can't be explained in human terms. You sense something deeper, something that pushes you to grow, something that challenges you to rise higher. You begin to understand that God isn't just preparing that person for you, He is preparing you for them. Faith in a chosen connection means trusting God's timing even when it frustrates you. It means believing that God can soften hearts, heal wounds, restore communication, and bring clarity where confusion once lived. Sometimes God will keep two people apart, not to break them, but to strengthen them separately so they can recognize the value of each other when He brings them back together. At other times, He allows them to remain close but inconsistent, teaching you how to love with grace instead of fear. This process forms the emotional and spiritual maturity needed for a divine union. When God chooses someone for you, the relationship will also require patience, patience with yourself, and patience with the other person. You may experience moments where they pull away or struggle with vulnerability. You may feel ready while they feel scared. You may be emotionally available while they are navigating old wounds. Divine love asks you to hold space, not pressure. It teaches you that love deepened through patience is far stronger than love forced through fear or insecurity. Faith becomes the anchor that keeps you from giving up when things feel uncertain. It reminds you that spiritual assignments often come with spiritual resistance. The enemy will try to plant doubts, insecurities, and confusion because he understands the power of a God-ordained connection. He knows that when two people aligned by God come together, they strengthen each other, uplift each other, and walk in purpose more boldly. So he tries to disrupt the process before it becomes permanent. That's why your faith must be stronger than your feelings. At the same time, having faith doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment or abandoning your own growth. It means trusting that God is capable of transformation, yours and theirs. It means believing that the same God who placed the connection in your spirit is guiding both of you toward a healthier, stronger, more mature version of yourselves. Divine love is not passive, it actively shapes you. It encourages prayer over panic, patience over pressure, understanding over assumption. Ultimately, a connection chosen by God will challenge you to love with intention, to believe beyond what you see, and to trust that what God has started, He will finish. It requires faith because destiny relationships aren't built in comfort. They are built in purpose. And purpose always asks for belief that stretches beyond the visible. When God tells you to wait with wisdom rather than worry, He is teaching you a deeper form of surrender. Waiting is not a punishment, nor is it a sign that the promise is slipping away. Instead, waiting is a spiritual discipline that helps you release the urge to control outcomes. When it comes to someone God has chosen for you, waiting becomes even more meaningful. It is the space where God teaches you to trust His timing, His preparation, and His orchestration. Many people wait with fear, checking constantly, stressing constantly, trying to read every signal, worrying about every change. But God calls you to a different kind of waiting, one that is rooted in confidence rather than anxiety. Waiting with wisdom means allowing God to lead while you remain spiritually grounded and emotionally steady. It means understanding that what is yours will not require chasing. You don't have to force conversations, manipulate outcomes, or cling to someone out of fear of losing them. If God truly ordained this connection, it will return, grow, or deepen in the right season without you exhausting yourself trying to make it happen prematurely. Wisdom teaches you that love built out of pressure or panic is not love that will endure. What God brings into your life will come with peace, not desperation. So instead of overthinking someone's silence or distance, you learn to trust that God is working behind the scenes, aligning hearts and healing wounds in His own way. Waiting with wisdom also means guarding your heart, not by shutting down emotionally, but by staying grounded spiritually. You remain prayerful instead of fearful. You discern the difference between God's timing and your impatience. You don't allow temporary emotions to create permanent decisions. You resist the temptation to let insecurity drive your actions. Waiting wisely means you don't chase validation or look for reassurance in places that cannot provide it. Instead, you look to God for clarity, strength, and direction. He is the only one who knows the full picture, and He is the only one who can prepare both you and the other person properly. Part of this wisdom is recognizing that the person God has chosen for you may also be in their own season of waiting, healing, or becoming. Sometimes God pauses a connection because one of you needs to grow emotionally, mentally, or spiritually before the relationship can flourish. Other times, He is removing distractions from their life or breaking unhealthy patterns that would hinder the future relationship. And sometimes God is simply allowing time to reveal what is real and what is temporary. When you wait with wisdom, you stop interpreting delays as rejection and start seeing them as preparation. The waiting season is also a test of your trust. God wants to know whether you believe His promise enough to remain steady even when you can't see progress. Worry focuses on what is lacking in the moment, but wisdom focuses on what God is building for the future. Worry panics when things feel uncertain, but wisdom rests in the knowledge that God is incapable of failing. Worry rushes, wisdom trusts the process. When you choose wisdom over worry, you allow God to direct each step without interfering out of fear. Waiting with wisdom is not passive, it is active faith. You continue to grow, heal, work on yourself, and deepen your relationship with God. You don't put your life on pause for someone. You live fully while trusting that God will bring clarity at the right time. You position yourself emotionally and spiritually for what He's preparing, rather than waiting anxiously for someone else to move. You focus on becoming the best version of yourself so that when the connection unfolds, it finds you ready, whole, and confident. In this posture of wise waiting, you discover peace that worry could never offer. You learn that God's timing is not a delay, it's divine precision. You realize that anything built on fear must be constantly protected, but anything given by God comes with security. And as you practice waiting with wisdom, you position yourself to receive the blessing fully without confusion or insecurity. This is how God prepares you for a love that is intentional, mature, and aligned with His purpose. The middle place, where things are uncertain, unfinished, and unresolved, is often the hardest part of any journey. It's the space between the promise and the fulfillment, between what God has spoken and what you can actually see. This in-between season is where many people give up because it feels confusing, silent, and slow. But this is also the place where God does His deepest, most transformative work. When it comes to a person God has chosen for you, the middle season is not a place of abandonment. It is a place of shaping. It's where God refines both of you, molds your character, and strengthens the foundation of the connection long before the relationship fully blossoms. The reason the miracle often happens in the middle is because that is where your faith is stretched the most. At the beginning, Excitement fuels you. You feel the connection, you sense the purpose, and everything feels hopeful. At the end, clarity appears and the promise becomes visible. But the middle is where your patience is tested. It's where your doubts get loud. It's where your emotions fluctuate. It's where the other person may be inconsistent, distant, or struggling with their own internal battles. Yet God keeps you connected in spirit because something divine is forming, something that requires time, spiritual maturity, and emotional growth. The middle reveals things about you that only pressure can uncover. It reveals your insecurities, your fears of abandonment, your tendencies to overthink or try to control outcomes. It exposes old wounds that still need healing. Instead of rushing the process, God uses this middle season to make you more secure in who you are, more patient in love, and more reliant on Him rather than your own understanding. This refining is necessary because the relationship God is preparing is not meant to be shallow or fragile. It is meant to be strong, intentional, and lasting. The middle season ensures that you won't sabotage the blessing when it arrives. The person God has chosen for you is also going through their own middle. They may be growing through past pain, learning how to trust again, or discovering their identity in a deeper way. They may need time to understand the significance of the connection. They may need healing from old patterns that would have damaged the relationship if God brought you together too soon. Just because you don't see visible change doesn't mean nothing is happening. Much like a plant develops strong roots before breaking through the soil, God is strengthening both of you on the inside before revealing the connection on the outside. This middle season is also where God orchestrates alignment. Timing matters, preparation matters, emotional readiness matters. Sometimes one heart is ready before the other, and God must work in the one who is behind. Sometimes the connection appears asleep, but in reality, God is synchronizing your paths, positioning circumstances, and guiding decisions that will eventually bring both of you to the same place at the same time. What feels like delay is often God's perfect coordination. Miracles in the middle don't always look dramatic. Sometimes the miracle is a shift in your thinking. Sometimes it's healing from an old hurt. Sometimes it's patience growing where impatience used to live. Sometimes the miracle is the other person realizing your value, feeling the pull toward you, or experiencing clarity after confusion. These miracles are subtle yet powerful, and they prepare the relationship to thrive when God finally brings it together. The middle season is sacred because it separates what is meant to last from what is temporary. If the connection survives uncertainty, distance, or silence, it shows that the bond is spiritual, not circumstantial. Temporary bonds break under pressure, but divinely chosen connections endure the middle because God sustains them. This endurance is often the miracle itself, proof that something deeper is happening beyond human understanding. When you're in the middle, it's easy to want to rush ahead, but God is saying, stay still, stay faithful, stay open. The middle is where trust is built. It's where hope is sharpened. It's where love becomes more than a feeling. It becomes a decision. And when the miracle finally unfolds, you will understand why God allowed the middle season to last as long as it did. You'll see how every tear, every question, every delay, and every moment of uncertainty was shaping both of you for a connection that is worth the wait. When God ordains a connection, no amount of confusion, delay, or spiritual resistance can undo what He has already established. Humans may hesitate, circumstances may shift, and emotions may fluctuate, but God's plan remains steady when He declares that a person is meant to be part of your life. His word carries authority that transcends temporary setbacks. This is why you can rest in the truth that what God has chosen for you cannot be taken by anyone else, not by another person, not by fear, not by insecurity, and not by the enemy. His decisions are final. His timing is perfect, and His purpose is unstoppable. There are seasons when the connection may feel strained or distant, and during those moments, it's easy to question whether you misunderstood God. Doubt creeps in when communication is inconsistent or when the person seems to pull away. But God's word is not fragile. His intentions don't crumble under pressure. Even when the path becomes unclear, His plan remains firmly in motion. What God ordains cannot be disrupted by temporary circumstances. The enemy may try to plant fear or confusion to make you let go of what God is preparing, but He cannot override divine purpose. God doesn't change His mind based on human behavior. He completes what He starts. This truth doesn't mean that the journey will be easy. It simply means it will be protected. When God chooses someone for you, He shields the connection in ways you may not see. He closes doors that would distract either of you. He removes people or influences that would interfere. He softens hearts at the right time and reveals truth when it's needed. Even when it looks like the connection is slipping away, God is working behind the scenes, arranging everything to align with His timing. You may feel the weight of waiting, but God is busy shaping the environment, the circumstances, and both hearts involved. Sometimes the strongest evidence that God has chosen someone for you is the way your heart refuses to disconnect completely. Even when you try, something in your spirit remains anchored, not out of desperation, but out of divine assurance. You feel peace beneath the confusion, a quiet knowing that defies logic. This kind of peace doesn't come from emotions. It comes from God. It is His way of reminding you that the connection is not accidental but spiritual. The enemy can imitate emotions, but he cannot counterfeit divine peace. That is your confirmation that what God established is still intact. God's protection over a chosen relationship often becomes more visible during the hardest moments. For example, when misunderstanding threatens to break the connection, God steps in subtly, calming emotions or creating space for clarity. When one person is hurting or confused, God begins healing them privately so the relationship won't be destroyed prematurely. When timing seems completely off, God redirects both lives until everything aligns again. Nothing happens randomly in a connection God ordains. Every shift, pause, and redirection serves a purpose. The fact that what God ordains cannot be taken away also means that no one else can replace what belongs to you. You don't have to fear losing the person to someone else because God is not in the business of giving your blessing to another. When He chooses someone for your life, He prepares them specifically for you and prepares you specifically for them. No counterfeit connection will satisfy them. No distraction will last. God knows how to bring them back to the place where the promise was born. He knows how to stir their heart, open their eyes, and realign their spirit. This truth frees you from striving. You don't have to fight for what is already yours spiritually. You don't have to compete, chase, or compromise your worth to keep someone. God has already secured the connection. He simply asks you to trust Him while He works. In time, both hearts will recognize the divine seal over the relationship. Everything God ordains carries a sense of inevitability, no matter the detours. The connection finds its way back together because God Himself is guiding it. And when His timing arrives, not even the strongest opposition can stand in the way of what He has destined to be.